it's a bit blurred, but that's why I will clearly tell you what are the reference that I have taken. So there are FIDIC reference for tendering process, FIDIC tendering strategies. Next, the document that I have followed is the tendering strategies from RICS guidance notes. There is a e-tendering guidance note from RICS as well. And there is a very good book I will recommend every one of you to read is Construction Cost Management, Learning from Case Studies. So this is a very good book that you can refer for tendering and selection of contracts. Okay. So I'll start with a quote of a very famous English writer, John Ruskin, as he says that it is unwise to pay too much, but it's worse to pay too little. When you pay too much, you lose a little money. That is all. When you are paying too much, you are losing a little money. But when you are paying too little, sometimes you lose everything because the thing you have bought was incapable of doing the thing it was bought to. So tendering is about obtaining price from the contractors, right, or subcontractors or consultants, and the selection process. So sometimes in the process of selection, we want to get lowest price in order to in order to award the contract. But getting to the lowest price should not be the only aim of tendering, because if you are paying too less, sometimes you might lose everything. So in many projects, it has been seen that where the bidders have quoted very low bids and were awarded the contract, finally resulted in the termination. They're unable to perform in the later stage of the project. So in case of tendering, we always have to strike the balance between the cost and the quality, right? So we are going to discuss in details in the upcoming slides. Uh, so what basically is tendering all about? So tendering is the process of obtaining the price and selecting a contractor or consultant for a project. Now, today, whatever we are going to discuss is from the perspective of a client. As a client or as a consultant or an engineer to the client or a consultant to the client, how you are going to do the tendering process, means how we are going to obtain the price and how we are going to select the contractor, right? So tendering is the process of obtaining the price and selecting the contractor and then awarding the contract. Okay. Now, it is always advisable to make the tendering process as fair as it can be. Right? Now, how you can make a tendering process fair? Okay? Fair means fairness should be there in between the contractor and the employer, or the consultant and the employer. Right? So, in order to achieve the fairness in a tender, the first thing that you can do is following the standard tendering procedures. Okay? Now, what is standard tendering procedures? So we have the FIDIC guidelines for the tendering procedures that you can follow. There are various standard forms of contract. We have the tendering procedures so that we can follow. So following the standard tendering procedures is very important. Second is about the tender process should be well defined and written in the instruction to tenderers. So instruction of tenders is basically the guideline how the tender evaluation is going to be done and how the process of selection is going to happen. So that process should be clearly written in instruction to tenderer. And every organization who is tendering must have a tendering SOP. Tendering SOP, that is tendering standard operating procedures for tendering. That should be a documented written document. Okay. Next is about a consistent procedures for submissions and inspection of tenders. Okay, the procedure should be consistent. Okay, I request you all to mute yourself. Okay, thank you. Right. And next is about what is the method of dealing with errors in tender. Okay? Means if there is any error in the submission in the tender returns, then how you will deal with that method. So that must be clear. So basically, there should be a tendering SOP, and the tendering process should be written in order to provide the fair tendering process. Okay? You also have to ensure that the tendering process that you are following that must be auditable. Anyone can be able to audit it in future. Now, sometimes it happens if you are working as a consultant to a client, right? And you are involved in the tendering process. So at the end of the tendering process, you have to submit tender report to the client, and uh, you have to write in the report about how the tender process or the tender selection has happened and it has taken place, and why you have recommended a particular uh, contractor as a selected contractor. Right? So that tender report basically gives the client a basis for taking an informed decision. Okay. Uh, Now I'm going to discuss about the tendering process, the flow process in details. And this is taken from Predict Tendering Procedures, second edition, 1994. Right. So the tendering process basically starts after the procurement route is finalized. Right. So firstly, we need to have the procurement route finalization process in place. And what is the procurement? Procurement is basically obtaining the services and the goods for the project. And tendering is a subset of the procurement process, the part of the procurement process. Okay. So firstly, the procurement routes will be finalized. A proper selection should be done for a procurement route. And based on the procurement route, you have to devise your tendering strategy. You have to make your tendering strategy. Okay. Now, what are the different tendering strategies that we are going to discuss at length in the upcoming slides, right? So tendering strategies will be defined, and then we will start compiling the tender documents. Means preparing the tender documents will start, and preparing the pre-qualification questionnaires. Pre-qualification questionnaires. So basically, the entire tendering process is divided into three parts. The first part is about initial stage. In initial stage, what you do the finalization of the tendering strategy, like what tendering you are going to follow, what type of tendering you are going to follow. Okay, so this is about the initial stage. Okay, now next stage is about uh, selection process. Okay, so selection process goes on from here: preparing the BOQ, invitation to pre-qualify, submission of PQ documents, analysis of PQ documents, and selection of the tender. So from here to here, you have the selection process. And next, there is the award process. So in award process, what we do, in award process, there is preparation of tender document, issuing the tender document, site visit by the tenderers, and then tender queries, tender addenda, submission of tenders, opening of tender, tender review, tender containing deviations, then evaluation of the tenders and award of contract. So after award of contract, this is issuing the letter of acceptance and performance security goes on. So this entire process of initial stage, then selection of the contract, selection process, and then the award process. This entire forms the tendering process. Now I'm going to discuss at length for each of the steps, like tendering strategies. So what are the tendering strategies that are followed in the construction project? Okay, so tendering strategies are the part of initial stage. In initial stage, what we do, we finalize the scope of work that a contractor or consultant is going to do. Now, in tendering, we are talking about both is hiring consultant or hiring contractor. Both we are going to discuss today. So, scope of work of the consultant and the contractor. Now, if you are defining the scope of the consultant, you have to identify what rights and responsibilities you are going to give the consultant. Right? So the entire scope is going to be finalized. Next, the consideration of selection, like are you going to do open tendering or selective tendering or negotiated tendering? Are you going to do it in a single stage tendering or in a two-stage tendering process? So the selection of this open, selective, and negotiated will happen in the initial stage, and then establishing the right tendering strategies. Now, how we are going to establish the right tendering strategies? Now we have single stage selective tendering. So we have to understand like what are the different tendering strategies and how they fit in with a particular project. So the first one is about the single stage selective tendering. So in single stage selective tendering, what happens uh, basically it is done in a single, as the name itself is self-explanatory. It is done in a single stage, like generally when the technical design is freezed at the rebar stage 4, right? We provide invitation to tender to the prospective suppliers or prospective contractors, and then through the pre-qualifying questionnaires, we pre-qualify them, and invitation to tender will be means after the pre-qualification, the tender dossier is handed over to them, the tender is floated, and then the evaluation is done. So the design control is in the employer's hand. The design is done by the employer, and then in case of the single stage tendering, we provide the means the design as well as the tender document at the reverse stage 4 for the tendering process. Okay. So here, what happens in single stage tendering, the tenderers have the maximum details with them because they are coming at a technical design stage when means most of the design is in place. Okay. So they have the maximum design possible, and the tenders are analyzed before a single contract is awarded the contract. So the tender will be evaluated. Maybe there will be a quality and cost-based selection process in place. So based on that, the tender will be analyzed and the contract will be awarded. Okay. So mostly we will prefer this type of single stage tendering in case of the traditional procurement route. Okay. When you are going for the traditional procurement route, you can prefer the single stage tendering process. Okay. Now, next is about two-stage tendering process. Two-stage tendering process. Okay. Now, when you are going to do, what is the two-stage tendering process and when you are going to do this two-stage tendering process? So sometimes the employer wants the contractor to get involved early in the project to provide his or her input in the buildability during the design development stage. Let's say, for example, if the client is building an iconic project, okay, that has that has much innovations involved in it and a very complex project. So the client may want to have some inputs from the contractor who is going to construct the design. Okay, because it may happen that the architect has designed something or the designer has designed something, and when you hand over the design to the contractor will say that it's not buildable. Okay. So it's always better to appoint the contractor in case of these complex projects, iconic projects. Okay, to appoint the contractor early in the projects and have their inputs in the design. So it increases the buildability and the cost certainty of the project. Okay. Now, this two-stage tendering process is actually comes at very premium cost because you have to involve the contractor at the early stage during design input. You have to provide, you have to pay some fee to the contractor, right? And also you are transferring the design risk to the contractor. The contractor has to say that yes, it is buildable, and the contractor takes the ownership of the design. Right? Next is creates an integrated project team, thereby minimizing the disputes. So as the contractor was involved early in the project, so there will be a good synergy between the team members, like with the architect and with the other stakeholders of the project. So it can minimize the dispute as well, the two-stage tendering process. Okay. Now, how we are going to do this two-stage tendering? Now, what happens in the first stage? In the first stage, what we generally do, we hire the contractor through a pre-consultancy service agreement. Okay, through pre-consultancy service agreement, and that the basis of the appointment is a pre-construction program. There is a method statement that the contractors submit, details of the preliminaries, agreed overheads and profits, schedule of rates will be there. There will be some items that will be missing because it is generally done at the revise stage 2. Okay, means the first stage in the concept design, right? So maybe all the items were not freezed. So some of the items will be negotiated in the second stage. Okay. Now, agreed fees and design and other pre-consultation services. Uh, the CV for the proposed site and head office staff will be given to the employer. Okay. And tendering of any package that can be broken out or defined, agreed contract conditions to be applied to the second stage. Now, these are the list of documents that will be submitted during the first stage of appointment. And once the first stage of appointment is done, the second stage of this two-stage tendering, we are going to negotiate on the items, bill of quantities, right? That will come later on after the design is freezed or after the technical design is done at the reverse stage 4. Okay. So mostly you can see the two-stage tendering, it's mostly suited for the design and build type of project. Okay. In the second stage of appointment, negotiation is done for the pricing part as agreed in the first stage tendering agreement. There will be a few more items that will be coming up after your uh, technical design is done. So you need to negotiate on that as well. Now, as you have appointed a contractor through two-stage tendering. Now, in the first stage, there is no obligations with the contractor to continue with them in the next stage as well, right? If you find the price competitive for other contractors in the second stage, you can go with them. Okay? But of course, it is not advisable because the contractor has been involved in the project in the first stage. Okay, so you must always uh, try to make sure that this contractor should be there in the second stage as well after reverse stage 4. But if some sort of miscommitment happens, or maybe the price, maybe the contractor wants to take the advantage of his involvement in first stage and increases the price or something like that, you can of course go with the other contractors. Okay, now we have negotiated tendering. So here it is basically not a competitive type of tendering. Here the competition is very low because the employer goes into negotiation with a single supplier sometimes. Okay, single suppliers, or maybe very few suppliers, and directly go into take prices from them and go into direct negotiation. So this is generally done for very highly specialized job, and there are very few players in the market. Uh, there you can go with a negotiated tendering, or maybe there are few contractors, those who have very good relationship with the client, and they have uh, done a good work for them in the past, right? So there also client prefers to go for negotiated tendering. But yes, the disadvantage is that there will be no competition in the price benefit for the client here. Now, negotiated tendering also happens in some of the cases, like if there is an urgency in doing your work, like you don't have the time to go for the traditional tendering process and hire a contractor. So rather than going for that, you directly go for a party and then negotiate the prices and award the contract. Okay. Now we have serial tendering. Okay, serial tendering. So what happens, like suppose there is a builder who is building a residential apartments or complex, right? And the construction is going to happen in phases. Like in first phase, maybe 4 or 5 towers will come up, and then in second and third stage will follow. Right? So the same type of apartments are going to means constructed in the premises. So in this case, you can go for serial tendering. Serial tendering means uh, it is generally based on the negotiation with the contractor and select. It's a hybrid model of the means selective tendering as well as negotiated tendering. So you can negotiate with the contractor and you can say that yes, we are coming up with the same type of same type of residential apartment in different phases. So you can provide me a good rate, okay, so that I can award you the same project. I will not go for tendering in the next phases, and I will award you the entire thing. And you have to mention that what will be the duration of the second phase and the third phase, and like that you can take the you can take the quotations from the contractor through the negotiated one. So in serial tendering, basically it's done for the repetitive type of work, or as I have mentioned, like the similar type of construction to be done in phases, minor works or maintenance works. So it can reduce your cost and it can reduce your time as well, like doing the repetitive tendering process. Rather than going for the repetitive tendering, you can go for the serial tendering. Okay. So this has been taken from RIC's guidance note of tendering strategies. I'm not going to read this entire document, just to tell you the essence of this entire this slide is like for design and build, you will have two-stage advantages in the two-stage tendering. For traditional, you should go for this single-stage tendering process, right? And negotiated tendering process, you can go for both of them, like design and build and traditional one. And negotiated tendering can happen at reverse stage 2. From reverse stage 2, you can do uh, this two-stage tendering. You can start at this stage. Two-stage tendering can start at concept design stage, and the second stage of this two-stage tendering will happen at the technical design. The single-stage tendering generally starts at the technical design stage. Okay. So this is about the selecting the tendering strategy that will happen at the initial stage of the entire tendering process. Now the second stage is about the selection process, how we are going to select. Okay. So the selection process talks about establishing the selection criteria, developing the weighting for the selection criteria. Okay. Selection criteria means the different parameters on the basis of which you are going to rate the contractor, the benchmarks on the basis of which you are going to rate the contractor and select them. Now, developing the weightings, identify where appropriate or threshold for the selection criteria means there must be minimum marking or minimum threshold that must be achieved by the contractor. Uh, we'll get the PPT at the end of the session. We can share the recording. You can write to us. We are recording the session. Okay. Now, there must be some threshold. Like for pre-qualification, we generally provide some threshold marks or the minimum marks that a contractor must qualify to go for the next stage of tendering process. Okay. Next is establishing the selection mechanism. Now, how you're going to select means what is the process? Is it a quality come cost based or only based on the price? What is the selection mechanism? How the weightage is going to be calculated? So this is the mechanism. Okay, inviting expression of interest. Okay, drawing a long list. So there will be a long list to whom the tender will be floated, and then after the evaluation of the tenders, we'll have the short list. Okay. Now, the selection process is the part here that we have discussed in the first slide. This one, preparing the pre-qualification questionnaires. Okay, pre-qualification questionnaires. So generally what we do, we generally provide invitation for pre-qualification to the contractors, okay, for pre-qualification, and provide the pre-qualification questionnaires to them and ask them to submit the supporting documents of the pre-qualifying questionnaires. Okay. So like you can see, these are some of the criteria, selection criteria for pre-qualification. Okay, thank you, Solomon. Uh, okay, so the first is about the structure and organization. What is the structure of the organization participating in the tender? So you can provide the marks. Basically, these marks are not fixed. These marks are based on the type of the project which you are conducting, like how this criteria matters to that particular project. Okay, on the basis of you can provide marks or the maximum marks for the particular criteria. Now, next is about experience in both the type of work in the country region. Means in the same region, what is the experience of the contractor, whether they have done the same work in that one. Next is about availability of the resources in terms of management capability, technical staffs, right? The resources, the quality. Then is the quality assurance policies, environment policy. Okay. Now, extent to which any work would be likely to be subcontracted means, means how much of the work is to be subcontracted. That also needs to be verified in pre-qualification. Now, financial stability of the contractor. Okay. Now, there are some general suitability, like there is whether the contractor is aware of the local dialect or not. And next is the arbitration or litigation history. So these are some of the criteria. These are not the fixed one. You can change as per the requirement of the project, as per the requirement of the client. Okay. Sometimes few client wants this criteria to be rated higher, like arbitration and litigation history. They don't want to go with any contractor who has any arbitration or litigation history in past. Okay. Now, this pre-qualification, in this pre-qualification, you can have a threshold mark. Okay, like 50% of this entire 100, like 50, to go for to enable the contractor to go to the next step. Okay. Now, who is going to provide the marks? So these are generally done by experienced people, 2 or 3 people in the tendering committee, those having means senior level positions and of high integrity, financial integrity. Those people generally provide their inputs in marks, and the average of those marks will be taken for each of the criteria. Okay. Now, once the pre-qualification is done, then the tenders will be floated. There will be a tender dossier, the entire set of tender document, which will be given to the contractor through notice inviting tender. Okay, and the tenders will be given to them, and then comes your tender returns and the selection process. Okay. Now, I'm not going into details of what will be the components, entire components, and what will be there inside each of the components of the tender document. Slightly, I will touch on this. Yeah. So these are basically the documents that will be attached with the tender dossier, letter to invitation to tender, instruction to tenderer. Okay, conditions of contract, both general conditions of contract and special conditions of contract. There will be technical specifications, drawings, bill of quantity, site data, and there are some list of documents, some appendixes that are attached with the tender document. Okay, there will be some forms that will be attached there. So this is the content of the entire tender dossier. Okay. Now there is a very important document called instruction to tenderer. So instruction to tenderer will contain uh, the process, means how the tender is going to price and how the selection criteria will be, means how they are going to be selected. Okay. So these are some of the contents of instruction to tenderer. I'm not going to read each and every of this content, but the important part is that you can see here, like what is the procedure of issuing addenda to the tender document, what is the procedure of dealing with the queries raised by the tender. The entire process is mentioned in the instruction to tenderers. Okay. Procedure to be adapted for tenderers to visit and inspect the site. These are the important points that I'm underlining. Okay. Information about the evaluation criteria and method. Okay. So this is the instruction tender, and we are well aware of the conditions of contract, general conditions and special conditions of contract, technical specification, drawings, tender drawings will be there, bill of quantity and site data. Okay. So once the tender document is floated, then we come for selection process. Okay. Selection is basically quality to price based selection. So most of the clients generally want to go for the value based selection or the value for money selection. Uh, it is also termed as, means, most economically advantageous tender, where we select the contractors on the basis of both quality and price. Now, in selection, we have to look for both the consultants and the contractors. Now, in consultant, what will be the quality to price ratio? It is not same for all the projects, like what weightage you are going to give for quality and what weightage you are going to give for the cost. It is not same for all the types of projects. It differs, right? Now for the consultants, if you're going to if you are tendering for the consultants, so in case of any feasibility study or investigation, you can put 85% weightage to the quality and 15% weightage to the price. Now why it is so? Why it is so? Because feasibility study is the, means, foundation stone for any project. There you can understand whether the project is feasible or not. If there is any error in finding out the feasibility, then the employer will be at a huge loss. Okay. So in case of feasibility, we have to, if we are awarding a contract to the consultant for checking out the feasibility study, we have to stress more on the quality aspect. Now the quality aspect uh, means the quality criteria. Okay. For innovative type of project, you can go for this. Complex project, you can go for 70-30. For straightforward project, 50-50, and for repeat projects where you are aware. Okay. Now for the repeat projects, like where as an employer, you have already done the similar type of projects in past. You are well aware of the technical specs and the quality measures that you have already followed in the same type of projects. So you can provide it 20-80 quality to price ratio. Similarly, for the contractors, in case of innovative projects, you can go for 60-40. For complex project, you can go for 50-50. Straightforward projects, you can go for 40-60, and the repeat projects, you can go for 20-80. Now, see, these are not fixed. These are just, means it depends on the expectations of the clients and the requirement of the client. You have to talk to the client, then you can fix like how much you are going to provide for the quality and how much you're going to provide, what weightage you are going to provide for the price. Okay, so firstly you have to finalize the weightage part. Okay, means how much weightage you are going to provide for quality and weightage for the price. Now next comes the tender evaluation. So in the quality, basically we consider as the technical part. Technical part is related to the quality, and the financial part is related to the cost. Okay, so the tender evaluation will be done on the quality cum cost based selection, QCBS. These are the more or less same, like value for money selection, or quality cum price selection, or quality cum price based cost based method. So these names are used interchangeably, and it is done in two stages. Like in the first stage, the technical bids are evaluated, that is the quality bids basically are opened first and scoring is done. And in the second stage, the financial bid, basically the price bid will be opened and scoring will be done for the contractors. Okay. I have taken a weightage of 60-40 for a particular project. It depends, like we have already discussed, how much weightage you are going to do, you are going to give, depends on the project itself. Okay. Now, based on the combined weighted score, the tender will be awarded to the highest scorer. So now let's see what is there in the technical evaluation or the technical bids. These are the components of the technical bids. Okay. There will be earnest money deposit, okay, or bid security, or tender security that should be given. Okay. So there are some forms like for financial details, solvency certificate, okay, some tax documents, okay, projects under execution, okay, organizational structure of the company, details of technical personnel to be employed. So these are the part of the technical bid, okay, and there are different forms for it. It's different formats which needs to be filled up by the contractor. I'll show you the formats. It's a part. It is what we have done in the recent project. We're showing you the forms, different forms at the end. Okay, and then all these forms needs to be filled up, and the technical bid will be submitted along with the financial bid. Financial bid will be the priced BOQ basically. Now, sometimes it happens that the contractors are unable to provide all the details. So in that case, you have all the authority, you have all the rights to reject the tender. Okay. So these are some of the forms that we generally share with the contractor to fill in the details for the technical bid evaluation. Okay. Like the structure and organization of the company. Now, details of the technical and administrative personnel to be employed for the work. Okay. Details of the construction plants and equipments likely to be used in the work. Okay. Now, how we do the technical scoring? Like firstly, we generally check the completeness of all the documents. Okay, and 20% weightage is given to this. Like if whether all the documents are complete, all the forms are complete or not. Next is financial capability of the contractor. So there are two forms related to the financial capability, okay, that the contractor needs to submit. So the 15% weightage is given to that. Experience of the similar nature of project in last 5 years. So that is 10% weightage. Okay, plants and equipments, and this organization structure, performance on work. So history of litigations. So all these are the part of the technical scoring, and we will provide the weighted score. Now, say for example, here the maximum score is 100. Now, if the score achieved is, say for example, is 50, okay, here like 50% of the documents are complete. Now we provide 50, so the weighted score will be 50 into 20%. Okay, 15 to 20%. This into this, and we'll arrive at the weighted score. Okay. So finally, we'll add up all this weighted score, and we will come to the technical scoring for a particular contractor. Okay. Now, how we are going to do the financial scoring? The lowest one, L1, the lowest bidder will be given the highest mark. Like 100% will be given to the 100 marks will be given to the lowest bidder, and on the basis of the lowest bidder, the other bids will be evaluated, means proportionately. Okay. And finally, the final score will be like technical score into 60%, because we have given 60% weightage to the quality and 40% to the financial scoring. So the technical score into 60% and financial score into 40%. So this is how the final score will be arrived. Okay. And we can award the contract to the most, the contractor who has scored the maximum. So this is how the tender evaluation and award is done to the contractor. Okay. Now the next part is about understanding the tendering process from the contractor's perspective. Today, whatever we have discussed, we have understood the process from the client's perspective. Now there is a contractor's perspective as well, and how to go for a bid, how to strategize for a bid, okay, how to price in a bid. So all these things we will be discussing in another session. Okay, it will take another 1 hour to discuss the things. Okay, so today we will conclude that session. Let me see if I have missed out something. Okay. Okay, so today we'll conclude this session, and in the next session we'll be discussing about understanding the tender strategies from contractors' perspective. Okay, if you like this session, you can rate us on the Trustpilot. The link is provided in the chat box. Just a minute, I'll be sharing the a link in the chat box. Okay, and thank you to all of those who reviewed us on Trustpilot. That gives us motivation to, to come for weekly APC every week, to prepare for weekly APC, and to bring these sessions to you. And next is about the professional quantity surveying course that we have launched recently, and it is going to start from March 9th, 2024. So this is about the technical competencies as well as the business competencies that you require to become a professional quantity surveyor. Right? So it's an amalgamation of both the technical and business skills that you are going to learn in the professional quantity survey course. So you can enroll for this. This is also aligned with the RICS APC requirement. So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Good afternoon. Well done, the facilitator. Please, I want to ask, will you make available for us the recording of this section? I already put a message on the chat for the admin. Thank you.
Yes. The thing is that you have to write to our email for this recorded session. So our team will provide you the link, because there is a process of providing it to Microsoft Teams. So generally the team looks after that. So you can write to us. Okay, I'm putting the email in chat box. Okay, there it is there. connect@alphalearnings.com. Okay, then. Is there any questions, further questions, or we will conclude for today? Please do write email to us. Will not be able to provide if you write here. And please rate us on Trustpilot if you like our this weekly APC sessions. We'll be bringing more sessions for you. Thank you very much, Chandravan. It's really very difficult to cover everything related to tendering in such a short period of time. Thank you, Ravi Chandran. See, certificates, it's not possible to issue certificates every week, right? Because we have a very small team, right, working, preparing certificates and distributing it. It's a very tiresome thing, right? No. So if you really want certificates, if you have to provide somewhere, you can write to us. We'll try to manage it. But we cannot commit to everyone to provide the certificates. You can write if you have done, if you want it for your APC, you can write that you have done the CPD. Now, if RICS inquires you about the certificates, of course we'll provide, but they will not inquire you about the certificates. As the session is recorded, it is the proof is with us, the records are with us. You can write in your CPD records on RICS portal that you have attended the CPD. Okay, that will be sufficient. They will not ask you for the certificates. Okay. And if they ask, we will provide.